Hi, Dennis. Thanks for joining us on the House Culture podcast today. Hailing from Glasgow, you burst out of that scene with tracks that are filled with innovative sounds and infectious energy. A DJ and producer that has not only played the biggest clubs and festivals in the world, but has also broadcast to hungry fans via iconic Boiler Room sets and Radio 1 residencies. It's our pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute what a flattering intro. Thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and yeah, really, thank you.
Cool. No, you're welcome. It's great to have you. Can't wait to hear your story. Before we dig into all the aspects of your career, we always like to roll back and go back to the beginning and find out, how you first discovered a love of music when you were growing up in Glasgow.
I suppose that music was always around in the house. My dad's a really talented musician.
Mm-hmm.
He plays the piano, and
Okay.
he's incredibly skillful, really talented piano player. So there was always music around in the house, and I was encouraged to play music from an early age. So I'd say the first major inspiration or the first major encouragement came from my parents.
Mm-hmm.
My mom sings as well. She sings in the choir, and they were both really, really interested in music. My dad was always playing kind of like Earth, Wind and Fire in the house, and we had
Mm-hmm.
a lot of like very big kind of like disco and sort of like acid jazz influence in the house, which was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was about like, I don't know, it was around about the time that I was in like P7, so I don't know how old that is. It's like maybe 11 or 12, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like we used to have Snoop Dogg Doggy Style on in the
In the
car on the way
house.
to school. So we had Marshall Mathers LP, we
Oh
had Doggy
wow.
Style, and we had Cypress Hill I think it's Black Sunday. We
Quality.
had that. My dad used to play that on the way to school.
No way.
So I used to listen to a lot of hip hop when I was that age, and I got an iPod. That was like when the iPod came out,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember like having the iPod and like downloading the Eminem album, and I was like, "This is great." And then so that was like my total thing, and I had a bunch of mates that were like really into hip hop, and like
Yeah.
those guys, like I used to really, really admire them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of a lot of those guys I went to school with, and they had such like one guy in particular had an encyclopedic knowledge of rappers and like hip hop and like releases and mixtapes and everything like that. So I was in really good company
Yeah.
to kind of like get into like hip hop music. And then about around the same time, my god brother he's a musician. He plays the guitar and he can sing and he can do all that stuff. That was kind of an influence on me. I played music. I played the trumpet in school
Mm-hmm.
and ended up getting to a level where I played in like orchestras and stuff.
Oh
So
wow.
it was
Okay.
funny. I actually played in the Usher Hall in Edinburgh with my
Yeah.
trumpet,
Uh-huh.
and then like 10 years later, I did it with Fly. So it was a kind of a nice sort of return to like the
Yeah,
Usher
that's
Hall.
fantastic.
But the trumpet was definitely a nice experience, and it kind of taught me about melodies, and it taught me about hitting notes and how to
Yeah.
like read music and phrasing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but it didn't last for me because I didn't think it was cool enough.
Yeah.
Like I saw like Spencer, my godbrother, he was playing, he was playing guitar in a band, and
Yeah.
he used to like him and his friend Daniel, who's a mastering engineer now, who they would like kind of DJ at parties with like a little like that little Roland SP101, I think it's called,
Yeah. Yeah.
or like the sampler, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they would use that, and I had no idea what it was at the time, but I saw it and I was just like, God, that's so cool. I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
And so again, it was my dad that introduced me. He bought me a copy of Cubase,
Mm-hmm.
and Cubase was so difficult to use, and I just
Yeah.
didn't get it, and I didn't have like the drive to get into it. So it took me a while after that to kind of really get into it, but we revisited it because I maintained this interest in it all the while. I was kind of like going to clubs and starting to do all that stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time I was gravitating towards hip hop music. So
Yeah.
over this time, I sort of had kind of got Ableton and sort of really kind of like started doing that, but I had no idea where to kind of start. And then I was a skier when I was about, like, between the ages of about 15 and about 19. I
Yeah.
used to
Wow.
freestyle. I used to like ski freestyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I used to like go and practice at a place called Bearsden Ski Club. And there
Mm-hmm.
was a kid there called Cal Sanderson who was
Mm-hmm.
like this crazy talented kid. He was like 12 and he was like, could do all sorts of stuff that I was like so blown away by.
Mm-hmm.
So him and I kind of really became good friends during that time. And his father, Wilbur, owns Rub Dub Records.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I basically made that connection that way,
Yeah.
and then eventually managed to like kind of muscle my way into a Saturday job there.
Uh-huh.
But the thing is, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into because I didn't know enough about DJing. I didn't really know anything about dance music. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until I was like 18, just about leaving school, that I was kind of like getting into like Eric Prydz and
Yeah.
all that stuff, like big dance records,
Yeah. Yeah.
Avicii and stuff. That was like the
Yeah.
kind of the first stuff I was getting into. Skrillex, I love Skrillex. I was
Yeah.
like, when he had that first big album of
Mm-hmm.
his, Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites, I was like, I loved it.
Yeah.
So I hadn't really got into like the underground, sort of underground resistance and, you know, all the kind of the techno bits and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, all the Theo Paris stuff and all that kind of kit that comes with Rubber
Yeah.
Dub. So I got that job, got like a DJ controller from Rubber Dub, like
Yeah.
got like a little kind of like Newmark Mix Track Pro,
Yeah.
and then just kind of got the hang of it then with that, and the music making was kind of on the side. But
Mm-hmm.
by this point, I was totally like flipped from like making hip hop beats, because I was making hip hop beats and then making like kind of dance records. But I enjoyed
Yeah.
making the hip hop beats because I was DJing at a hip hop night then, and I ran a
Okay.
hip hop night with some friends, and
Yeah.
like we had like there was a big hip hop scene in Glasgow at the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, there still is, you know, I'm sure there still is, but it kind of, that was one of the things that I was really involved in at
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So started working at Rubadub, and I sort of learned a whole bunch of new avenues to sort of explore, and I was kind of finding lots of underground stuff and some new
Mm-hmm.
names of some new people and some new sounds and
Yeah.
why it was good and all that stuff. And yeah, that was a great part of my sort of learning experience, because that was like it was like, okay, you know, after I'd sort of worked hard enough to sort of like cement my place there,
Yeah.
I started kind of realized at that point that I'd just been learning on the job about a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the music that was
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yeah.
And I think that as well, that there's a lot of other people in the shop that really had an effect on me, you know, Dan Lorinsky and Alex Jurczyk, Ryan
Mm-hmm.
Martin, who had a label called All Caps at the time.
Yeah.
You know, there was some really, really great, kind of great inspirational people there for a whole bunch of different reasons, you know, that's
Yeah.
the other thing. So yeah, that was a great little kind of, it was a really good way for me to sort of experience the underground scene and to kind of like learn a lot from a lot of people. You know,
Yeah.
Alex specifically was really helpful with all my productions. He really helped me to like understand some technical bits that I just I couldn't get. So he was always very interested in helping me with that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then, well, and the other thing is Dan Lorinsky, who runs Dixon Avenue Basement Jams with Kenny Grieve.
Yeah.
Dan was the manager in the shop at the time, so you know I was constantly trying to like impress him to hopefully get a Dixon Avenue release. That was like
Yeah.
the
Of
kind of like the
course.
kind of that was like my thing, because I never
Yeah.
released any music this, but that idea was just crazy to me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So during all that time, I went to university and like it didn't work out. I just
Mm-hmm.
went and I didn't pay attention and I didn't really want to do it. And I was like coming back from uni to like work in Rubadub, and like the wage I was getting to work on a Saturday wasn't enough to cover the train fares
Oh,
So like
no.
I was basically like kind of paying to work there
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
loved
Yeah.
it so much.
Yeah.
And like, because it was totally like, this is where I want to be. This is kind of what I want to do. And but deep down, I think it was like, I really want to make music. I
Yeah.
want to make music. And the DJing I was really enjoying. You know, I was definitely getting involved in the electronic things. I had a night that I ran with some friends called Wake, and I did a party with a guy called Ross Anderson and a guy called Matthew Craig, who ran this thing called I Am on a Tuesday night in the sub club.
Yep.
And that was amazing. You know, like it was kind of like indie dance thing at the time, and it's totally what I was into, and it was fabulous. You know, it was really great memories from all that time.
Yeah.
And but yeah, and then I was just once uni sort of fell through, I came back to Glasgow because I was in Edinburgh at the time, and that's where I met Tom Ketley from Fly.
Yep.
So once I moved to Edinburgh, I sort of went there with a sort of a kind of like, I work in a record store and I know what I'm doing. So like I'm going to just get a residency and all that, blah. So anyway, I played hip hop in room 2 for Tom Ketley for like a year, maybe more.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until like after that, I was like, you got to put me in the main room. Please put me in the main room. Please put me in the main room. That our relationship then moved into like this sort of like the main room house direction, which was amazing. And Tom really put a lot of faith in me, and I'm so happy to see how successful he's been, and it's wonderful to still work with him when, when we can. And so, all these people had an amazing effect on I suppose, Denis Sulta. And it wasn't really until I stopped uni, because I was going under the name Hector House at the time, which the reason for that is because there's an old television program that my granny used to show me called Hector's House, right?
Yes,
it's like a little do you know what I'm talking about?
Uh-huh.
It's like it's a puppet dog. It's like a little pup dog. It's like made of felt, and there's a little turtle and stuff. Anyway, my granny, she used to show me this show, and so I called myself Hector's House. And I had like a radio station on Sub City Radio. And so I did a couple of these little things, this Hector's House. And they used to call me Hector House in Rubadub. That was Marty's name for me in the warehouse. They used to call me Hector House, and then they used to call me Nimble Philip. Nimble Phil.
What was that about?
To be honest, I don't actually really know, but there's definitely some sort of some emphasis on the nimble. I don't know what the nimbleness means, but we all had our own little names in there, so it was great. Anyway, that's kind of where that came from. But there was a night in Edinburgh. It was called Hector's House.
Yeah.
And me being the sort of like egotistical 21-year-old was like, you bastards, that's my name. And like, totally had like beef with him at the time.
Yeah.
In my head, just me. And I just went, I'll switch it up. And as I moved back to Glasgow, I just put everything into like making music. I just went, you know what? Well, Rubdub didn't have the hours for me anymore. And that was kind of not full time, and I didn't really, I wasn't really putting enough into it, really. To be honest with you, they were really so supportive, and I'll always say that, but at the time I was definitely kind of maybe not the most reliable person. You know what I mean? Yeah. I was definitely kind of at university here, or trying to make music, or trying to DJ and stuff, and it was kind of hard to find my focus really. So I was doing what I could to be there, and it was a great opportunity. Yeah. So I started working in a shoe shop. Worked in size like a few days a week. I worked there. I worked in size for like, I think I did like 4 or 5 days a week. So I did Monday to Friday in size, Saturday, Sunday in Rubdub. Yeah. And then was DJing on Friday in Edinburgh. So then I would do Monday to Friday, do the size thing, go to Edinburgh, come back, come back to Glasgow, work in Rubdub, DJ again, or go out on the Saturday, and then work in the shop on Sunday and do it all again the next week.
Wow.
But you can do these things when you're like 21. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. I'm 31 now, right? 10 years ago. Yeah. But like, I can barely do a round of golf without coming home and feeling like I've been hit by a bus. So that was kind of when it all started to like really start to kind of get some momentum, because I was really making a lot of music then. And that was when I made AAS, Night and Day Mix, the AALAS and the Saturday Night record,
Yeah.
which I came in to help to give to Dan, and I played it for Dan, but I didn't play it for him. Kenny and Dan were in the shop one day, and I used to just like have control of the aux cable, and I used to just play my own music, but not tell them that it was mine.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
it was like so that there wouldn't be bias behind it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if they were like, "Oh, what's this one again?" Then I'd be like, "Oh, do you like this one? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, nice. Yeah, I made this last night." So it's that's how it got signed. That's how the record got signed, and that's how the whole thing started. Because Denis Sulta was a name I came up with specifically to start when I started releasing music. When I was like, this is the thing. I just want to create a character.
Yep.
I just want to create a different name. It's not mine. And I used to release music as, or at least I used to make music as Atlas, Atlus, right? And that was like the idea of like the man with the world on his shoulders, you know, the boy with the world on his shoulders, and that was the sort of like the thing I was going for, moody and dark and crunchy, and I was just making like really sort of like it was really gruesome, like just crunchy techno stuff, really, with just like no melodies and just really hard driven stuff.
Yeah.
That's just where it was mentally. Just dial it up. You know, I had this tape machine, and I just used to just put everything through the tape machine, and just whack on the tube to the highest setting. You know what I mean? Just loved doing some punk stuff back then. Do you know what I mean? Just doing punk stuff. And then, but Denis Sulta was, okay, I'm going to change this on its, flip this on its head, and we're going to give it a different perspective. Atlas backwards is Sulta.
Yeah.
Right? And then, and I knew I needed to change it because Atlas with a U is a big video game company. And I was like, I want to get like a unique search term on Google. So when you type it in, you just get one result, and it's going to be you. Yeah. So yeah, and then the Dennis came from like Disco Dennis. Dennis. It just sounded good, like Disco Stu from The Simpsons. You know, I used to love The Simpsons, and Disco Stu had this kind of thing about him. So I was a bit like Disco Dennis Sulta. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
And it had two N's initially. Dennis. Signed this record with Dan. He thought it was going to do really well, so he ordered like 1,500 copies, which is like a lot for like a first run.
Yeah.
I was really buzzing in, and the boxes arrived in the shop, and I remember just being like, "Oh my god, I've done it! It's my first record out!" And I ripped open the box, and Dennis was spelt with one N, and I was like, "No,
oh man,
how could you make this mistake?" And he's like, and he went, "Oh, do you know what, Hector? It looks better with one anyway, so we'll just leave it."
Of course it does, yeah.
So I was like, do you know what? Fair enough, and I just and it's stuck, and then after that, it just became like, I released a few more records. I did a Boiler Room for Dixon Avenue, and just before I did the Boiler Room, I actually stopped working inside the shoe shop because it just wasn't suiting. It just didn't want to be there really anymore, and I wanted a different sort of, just wanted to do something else. I washed dishes. I was a pot washer in Max's La Chita. Right.
Wow. Yeah.
And I love La Chita so much, and Dario and Wardy and Dom from La Chita have just been like a great influence and a really great inspiration and great support. The club there is absolutely fantastic. Like the sound and everything was great. So I just loved being close to that. Yeah. So I just washed dishes there 3 days a week, and when you in the cleanup at the end, I used to just listen to the music I was making because I had access to the system. Yeah. So in the hour I used to clean up at the end of the night, I just used to listen to my own stuff and the thing, and then go home, and it didn't start till 12, so I could stay up till 1 or 2 making music and then go in the next day.
Yeah. So you had the system. You had the system to test out your material in there. Like that's like the best thing to.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the club. It wasn't the club system. It wasn't the club system, but it was like this system in the kitchen. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Okay. So, but like the thing is, having said that, I did get access to the booth to practice for the Boiler Room. Yeah. So that was like one of the things that, like, the Boiler Room is one of these things where, like, I knew how much of an opportunity it was, or at least I kind of knew how much it required my full attention and like a bit of preparation. Yeah. I was like, if I'm going to do this,
Yeah.
I got to make sure it's like really good. Do you know what I mean? I got to
Yeah.
make sure it's like proper tight and that there's like kind of cool little moments in it and stuff.
Yeah.
So I practiced, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Wardy, Dario, and Dom let me use, and Jenny, the manager, who was the manager there at that time. You know, they were always so good to me. They
Yeah.
really were. They were so good to me, and they let me use the booth. So I had like the booth and the monitors to
Yeah.
practice
Mm-hmm.
on, which is amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But before, as I knew this was coming up,
Yeah.
I said to my head chef at the time, I said, "Listen, I'm doing this thing on Wednesday, and I'm gonna this is or like next Wednesday next month. This is
Yeah.
my notice." And
Yeah.
he was like, "Okay, cool." And I was like, "I'm gonna go for it after this." And he was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Amazing, fantastic." So they were
Yeah.
super supportive. I left Max's on a Tuesday. I
Mm-hmm.
played the Boiler Room on a Wednesday,
Yeah.
and when the Boiler Room happened, it was so great. It was just like such an amazing moment,
Yeah.
and I was like the first person to crowd surf on Boiler Room, which I didn't really think was like, it wasn't really the plan,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it was just like one of them ones where like, you know, Sam Murray and Cam Hunter at the time, such, you know, like that, it's such kind of like, they were so into it and so kind of supportive and so kind of up for it.
Yeah.
Just lifted me up, and all of a sudden it was just like, I'm not made of much, Matt. So I got, you know what I mean, I stayed up there for some time. It was an amazing moment, honestly, and I think that like I just so much to be grateful for when it comes to like the support that I had in Glasgow at the time, and
Yeah.
you know, everybody just really wanted to like be a part of something cool, and
Yeah.
and it's amazing to have had that backing, you know, that foundation of support. And yeah, that night actually I spoke to Ben Coghill, who ran an agency, and we had a chat about that, and then that's kind of the next step was I kind of ended up working with Ben, and he did my bookings then, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so then I started doing the DJ thing,
Yeah.
and then like that was, I don't know, like 7 years ago maybe, and I'm here, and
That's
it kind of feels
incredible.
like it's
Mm-hmm.
gone by like that.
Yeah.
So you know, it was a really cool experience. You know,
Yeah.
all that early stuff is great because you're just totally working stuff out, and you're sort of just you're just excited about the
Yeah.
whole thing. And you still, I mean, I still am, but it's like, you know, but it is definitely when you start off like that, it's amazing. So yeah, that's kind of how the Denis Sulta started. Yeah.
Yeah. No fear in it either. It's, you know, this is like you're just feeling your way. You know, if you look back on it, you might be like, oh, I maybe made a mistake there, or oh, I should have done that better. But at the time, you just got to go for it, and you just got to have your eyes on the prize, like you said. With when you handed in your notice, be like, after this moment, I'm just going to push this. I mean, and what an education to have in dance music, being behind the counter in, you know, an iconic record shop in Glasgow, in Rubber Dub, you know, being surrounded by not only the staff, like you say, but the customers as well, and all the kind of like conversations and places, you know, that you'd have in a record shop with everyone coming in. I mean, talking about Boiler Room specifically, I mean, you were the first guy to crowd surf on that. That was going to be one of my questions. You've jumped on that for me, but I mean, you just take us in your own mindset. Like you said, you were working like basically being a pot washer or whatever, you know, DJing here and there, making music, whatever. What was it like when you got that call from Boiler Room and that moment and that feeling for you? Was it like, were you surprised, or did you just think, I'm ready?
I don't know. It's hard to like pinpoint, to be honest. I think that like at the time, the way that it was set up was it was like a Dixon Avenue Boiler Room, and so
Mm-hmm.
Dan and Kenny were going to go last, right? And I was just like totally chuffed to be a part of it. Like I was
Yeah.
totally chuffed to be a part of it, but I was also like, this is like an opportunity for me to really give it some.
Yeah.
So I was like a bit like, okay, this is like a really big thing to do,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like I suppose I sort of feel the same way about it now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, like this is something I can like plan and I can like come into it and I can feel really good about and like kind of show off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If this is how if I want to do this, then the boiler room's a good way of doing that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, the boiler room has been instrumental in my career, like without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they've been as they have been in so many people's careers.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
huge thing to do,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, but the thing is as well, it's a huge thing to do, but it's like, if you can sort of like, I think the way I like to look at it is it's like kind of it's a show. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
show,
Yeah.
and you've got like everyone's attention for an hour, so you just be like, "Oh, let's do the whole thing and get the whole
Yeah.
thing rocking." And I had a bunch of new music at that time. It's
Yeah.
Only Real hadn't been released yet,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and Rough Garden had just been released. So I was like, I had a bunch of new stuff in there to play, and it was like super exciting. And I was just about, not like, having said all this, Matt, I was sick with nerves.
Uh,
I was sick with nerves,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm surprised that the recording's any good, because I remember I played on this Allen and Heath mixer.
Yeah.
It's not the Zone. It was like a different. It was like it was only around for a while. I can't remember what it's called, but it was like I can't remember what mixer it was called.
Yeah.
But when I was playing it, I had it like, it was solid red, like the solid red.
Yeah.
And it's like, you could hear the recording go like a little bit like in the distortion, but it was like, my skill level wasn't like that high.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
like, I could definitely, like, on the sort of like the maintenance and good kind of housekeeping when it comes to DJing levels and stuff.
Yeah.
But I had practiced loads, so the thing is like, I knew that if I just practiced, then I could rely on that, and that I wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So, I spent a lot of time picking the songs, and I spent a lot of time practicing the transitions. So I was just like, it'll be good.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, it's a fantastic listen still to this day. And you've done, like you said, you've done a few over the years as well. And they are, they do command attention. And in terms of, when you're thinking about doing a boiler room, how do they hit differently from a normal kind of gig? Like you said, there's a bit more of a presence to them, a bit more of like, I've got your attention, something a bit more special. And how do you approach them in that different way potentially than just like a standard club gig?
So the boiler room is very special because people are like so ready for it. Like, the people that are in the room are like so ready for it. So you've already got that like in your favor, really. The other thing is that, like, I actually don't mind playing long sets, but I really enjoy playing short ones.
Yeah.
So, like, because when you play a short one, you can keep the energy quite high, even if it's like, for that kind of expulsion of energy sort of thing. I find that easier to be in than I find like getting into the zone can take a while.
Yeah.
And then staying in there is kind of hard for me. But I think that, like, when you've got 1 hour and you've got a brief, that's the thing, you've got a brief. Like, you've got 1 hour, you know who else is on around you. Everyone's going to be up for it. It's going to be a great party. Like, it's going to be a great thing. And it's like an opportunity for you to show what you're about. So I would probably go like, right, well, I mean, the way I did all three of them was quite similar. I went, right, okay, I'm going to start here and I'm going to finish here. Which is just like, I suppose, how I used to think about DJing in general. I just used to be like, okay, I'm going to start like 122 and I'm going to finish at like 140 or something. Because I'll get to like 130 naturally, but then I'll just put like, the last one will be like a big showstopper, like kind of a, one that was a good way to kind of get people going. Have a crazy last tune. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like have a trance throwback song. I remember like when I saw, it was like probably like the first viral video of a boiler room that I saw was Space Dimension Controller playing Ayla at the AVA, right? That was like the first thing I remember seeing and be like, oh, so that's how you do it.
Yeah.
I was like, that's
You
the
can
ticket
do that.
there.
Yeah.
That's the ticket. I was like, okay, I'll do something like that. So I was like, and when I did the second one in Belfast, it was a lot of it was like before like a lot of the bells and whistles, because the mixers I was using then didn't have any effects. It was just like Allen and Heath's, and it was just all about getting the transitions tight and just being like, because it was really nerve-wracking. I mean, I know I'm talking about it like I can handle it, but like even the one I did in Edinburgh just a couple months ago or last year, God, it's like so nerve-wracking, because you're like, if you fuck this up, it's it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the only thing you can do is say, don't put it up. But then it's like,
Mm.
what's the point in that?
Yeah.
And so you have to be ready for like anything, because they don't have any switch over times. It's like you just go straight on after the
Yeah.
last person.
Yeah.
And like the sound, because they're like custom built places most of the time, it's like, the sound isn't always going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to contend with. But musically, I think that I've done it. I've approached it in similar ways, and just like go through a bunch of things and go, okay, if I can go from here and I want to get here,
Yeah.
so how am I going to get there? And
Yeah.
then I'll just like sort of ramp it up together. And I'd say that I go through it. I go through the mix like in its entirety, probably about twice. But
Mm-hmm.
all of the transitions I'll go through multiple times
Yeah.
until I
Yeah.
get the right one, and
Yeah.
then I'll mark it all, get all the
Mm-hmm.
cue points sorted.
Yeah.
I think that like it took me a while to be honest about that, because my ego was a bit like, I don't want anyone to know that like I've got it planned. But
Yeah.
I think that like now this is the truth, and I plan almost all of my sets now.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's like I don't plan them as meticulously as I plan the boiler room,
Yeah.
but I'll always put in a good few hours of thinking
Yeah.
about what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Because then once you have that backbone of a plan,
Mm-hmm.
then you can sort of freestyle around that plan.
Yep. Yeah.
Then you're not, you can take away the thought process of having to choose what's
Yeah.
next, because
Yeah.
you've already got a suggestion that you made earlier. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good way of doing it. So,
Yeah, and being prepared as well, like you say, having the flexibility on, marking up your tracks and knowing that, okay, well, if I'm not feeling this one next, that's the suggestion. I know I can go over here, and it's not going to be a journey into the unknown because I've got it all marked up and I know how my brain operates in terms of like mixing those together.
yeah.
I want to talk about playing live as well. Like, you've recently played a Solomon's +1 in Pasha. I mean, you've done a number of back-to-backs with Solomon over the years. I mean, just firstly, kind of what's it like playing a back-to-back generally? And secondly, what's it like being parachuted into a back-to-back with Solomon, and what kind of relationship do you have with him behind the decks?
So, yeah, I mean, it's back to back generally, I would say you get to know a lot about the person you're with.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have, it's a very intimate experience in some ways,
Yeah.
because you have to kind of be conscious of what they're trying to do. So I think that like a lot of the times, and a lot of the mistakes that I've made have been that I've been too quick to move on from what they're doing, or to be like too considering, or not considerate enough about what their sound is.
Yeah.
So I've done some great back to backs. In fact, one of the ones that stands out for me, just as we're talking about it, is I did a back to back with Tiga and High at the
Mm-hmm.
Drum Sheds in London a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
and that was like, my goodness, I don't remember how many people were there,
Yeah.
but I seem to remember it was probably one of the biggest indoor crowds I've ever been in front of,
Wow.
and it was amazing.
Yeah.
The three-way was super cool. It gives
Mm-hmm.
you a little bit of time to breathe, like the three-way
Yeah.
stuff, and to think, because you got to react. But like anything, you sort of have to know your own bag, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the ones that I've really enjoyed, and I always enjoy, is playing with Ryan Melody. We've done a good few back-to-backs now. We
Mm-hmm.
played on King's Day, at like an outdoor open air club in Amsterdam,
Yeah.
and it was. I mean, it was hectic getting there for a start. King's Day is crazy in Amsterdam. I mean, it's like a party on every street, and so the promoter was just like, "I don't know how you're going to get here, but you start at like 8, so let's just fingers crossed you make it." And we had to hire bikes, and we had to like push our bikes through a street party at one point,
Yeah.
and it was like the most stressful moment I've ever experienced getting to a show, because it was so nuts, and people were just, this one guy was literally like, he was hysterical with laughter
Mm-hmm.
watching us trying to get the bikes through. It was just like, are you fucking insane? Like, how the hell did you think this was a good idea? And like, me and my partner was there, it was Ryan, and we were trying to get through, and it was insane. But like the back-to-back with Ryan is always really great because we've known each other well, and we've got a lot of respect for one another, you know. With Solomon, the first time I did it 3 years ago was amazing. It was absolutely fantastic. You know, it is such an honor to do it, and I think that like I was definitely, you know, a lot of these things I definitely like rely on a lot of the things that actually my parents taught me about being a polite person growing up, because a lot of it comes down to you being considerate and kind and patient and like and encouraging. So because you're working as a team. So like, you know, I before I really did that one with Solomon, not saying I did this all the time, but there was definitely times when I was trying to outdo the other person, or there had been a sort of a versus approach to it. Right. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing in situations, but I definitely seem to remember that was not how I was going to approach the Solomon thing.
Yeah.
Right? I was definitely not going to approach that because it was such a huge deal for me to be there to do this show with him.
Yeah.
And you know what? He is one of the nicest guys that I've met in this industry. And he is one of the most inspirational too. In fact, since the show we did together at the weekend, I have just been sort of like drifting along on this pink cloud of kind of inspiration after having worked with him. Yeah. Because the way he plays is so free, but at the same time, it's so experienced and so technical. Yeah. And what he plays, like, absolutely works every single time because he's just so okay with who he is and what he likes, and that what he likes comes as a result of his years of experience and true honest approach to it. Yeah. So, you know, the thing that I did the first time was I just sort of tried to hang on. I just tried to keep up. Like that was all I tried to do the first time because it was so. I had a bunch of underground records, and I was playing in Pasha, which is like got some great underground artists, but at the same time has a lot of main stage properties to it. Yeah. So I was trying to keep up with that. That's all I tried to do, and it went really well. Yeah. And then, you know, the second time I did it, it was still absolutely fantastic. But in the opening, when you do +1, you do the opening of the night, and I played it too hard, and so by the time we got to the back-to-back, I didn't have much left. Yeah, really. Yeah. And that affected my. I mean, I don't think it necessarily affected the party. It was a great success. The party was fantastic, and you know, I was so happy to be there, and you know all that. But it definitely was a bit like maybe, you know, I could have attacked it better. And I think this year, I've gone into it with like a little bit more patience and a bit more like of an attitude of experience from what I've learned previously. And because we know each other now, the back-to-back was just fantastic. It's like the best one we've done. And the club was absolutely like packed out. And, you know, he was such a supportive and kind person. And we were sort of, you know, communicating the whole way through. And sometimes you don't even need to do that. You know, it's like, he's great. He just goes, he lets a song play and then you just mix it out and mix into the next one. It's really as simple as that. There was no, you know, and if he wants to, and the thing is as well, is it's his night. So if he wants to change the direction, then he can change the direction and I just go along with him. That's the way I like to think about it, really. So that's sort of how it feels like, you know.
Nice one. I mean, that's
big
so
up to
interesting.
Mladen and like the whole team at Pasha and Lars and everybody. That was like a really special one. I swear to God, since that last weekend, I've just been like, I felt so lucky to be there and so happy with how it came out. And I'm just so honored to have been a part of it.
Wow, that's a good feeling. That's a very good feeling. And, you know, in terms of kind of festivals and things like that, you know, with Sulta Selects, you've recently hosted the core stage at Tomorrowland in Belgium. It featured yourself alongside artists like Shanti Celeste and Bashka. Um, how do you go about programming kind of music for something that you're selecting talent for something like that? You own a stage at a festival. You've got a blank sheet of paper in front of you. How do you do that, and what are you looking for?
So that kind of happens kind of quite naturally, I'd say. It happens with like the help of a lot of other people too. So it helps with we take a lot of people's considerations in, and we take a lot of kind of like inclusivity considerations in as well.
Mm-hmm.
My manager Sarah is really, really instrumental in helping with picking lineups. We also work quite closely with Core on that. So
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, it's, I'll definitely kind of have a couple of things to say and a lot of kind of like people that I'll like, put forward, but we all have a discussion, and we sort of we come to, we come to a sort of a lineup in the end.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of, there's definitely people I like and I'm digging, but it's one of them ones where you kind of go, all that, it kind of all has to make sense together.
Yeah.
And I think that, it was a really amazing. It was such an honor, and I don't use that word lightly. I know I've used it twice, but that's because some of the opportunities that I've been presented with have been kind of monumental, really.
Yeah.
And sort of being given the opportunity to do that is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And when we when we kind of attack these sort of opportunities, we do it with the utmost care, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, and we try and make sure that it really, really works for the event.
Yeah.
And I think it was a real success.
Yeah. Cool. And you're doing the one in Brazil as well, Tomorrowland in Brazil. Like, have you done that one before?
No, I haven't. I haven't played. This is the first year I played Tomorrowland.
Oh, really?
And and I have to say, it's like, crowd wise, it's amazing. People go there and they really go to get loose.
Yeah.
And that like really helps. I think like the production is obviously like absolutely like ridiculous.
Yeah.
The winter one was nuts. Like as I said, I used to ski a lot, so I have a real like affinity with the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never seen anything like that before. It's like you're just driving up to a ski resort, and then all of a sudden there's this like 100-foot head with flames flying out the side. It's crazy. It's amazing. And then, there's a lot of people go. It's very busy. Yeah. So, it was a great experience. And I love Brazil. Like, I love Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
But, doing Tomorrowland in Brazil is going to be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Brazil is nuts. I did a show there at a place called Green Valley a couple, like last month, with Gorgon City and Moshak.
Yeah.
And it was like one of the best shows of my life. Like, it's like I came back, I was on the phone to my mum, and I was like, that's the best.
Yeah.
That's like the best show ever, honestly. And I'll remember it forever. The Brazilians are just so up for it. They're so up for it. And they take their partying very, very seriously. I closed the club. I did like 5 till 7 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to bed and got up at 2 and then went there at like 3 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then, or 4 probably. And then played, and the club was still full at 7 o'clock.
Wow.
It's madness,
That's great. Yeah.
On just any given night. So
yeah. That's brilliant. And like, in terms of, you just mentioned there as well, when you're playing in a club, what's your kind of process in terms of, if there are people playing before you, do you get there while they're playing as well, just to kind of soak up what's going on, where the night's going? Or do you just like to go in and just do it cold, because then you can just be true to what your vision is in terms of what you're going to play?
I get there between, like, depending on how like accessible it is, usually about 45 minutes, a half an hour before I go on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll probably catch the end of who's playing before me, like the last 10 minutes maybe.
Yeah.
But like, I'll I don't tend to spend too much time in the club if I can help it.
Yeah.
Like I don't go to clubs at all anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of my life that I had to sort of let go of. And
Yeah.
I think that um, that that's okay. Like it's okay. And I kind of I've accepted now, but especially where I am right now in my life, that I really enjoy music in a solo environment,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of like that kind of, when I'm in that kind of big loud social like club environment. If your job is to like expel energy and be expressive,
Mm-hmm.
then if you're like in a place that's going to tire you out before that, then it's almost better to try and maintain some of that energy before you go and do the show.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that like sometimes I hang out for a bit afterwards. You know what I mean? I definitely, especially if there's friends there and stuff. But beforehand, I'll probably just like take it really easy, keep it calm, and have something to eat, nice to eat, and like, you know, and just really try and like no be organized, be really
Yeah.
organized as I can,
Yeah.
and then get there with like 45 minutes, half an hour to go,
Yeah.
and then and like the one thing though that is like that is never not awkward is the changeover with the
Yeah.
DJ. It's always the same. Like it
Uh-huh.
doesn't matter if it's someone you've known for years or if it's someone new,
Yeah.
because I'm like, I would always like to mix into someone,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Yeah.
always would rather someone mixed out of me,
Yeah.
because I feel like if you go cold, it sort of just ruins the vibe a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the thing is that whenever you trying to communicate that when someone's got the booth monitors up full and you're like, coming in like, do you want me to change over? It's like that's always a little bit awkward.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's yeah. I don't know. It feels more and more like a job, but it's a job I love. It's like, it's strange
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, it is my job. I'm so lucky that I can make a living from it.
Yeah.
But the more that I've treated it like a job, the more I've enjoyed it,
Yeah.
and the more that I feel like I have been able to give it the respect it deserves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you know, there's times when I haven't treated it like a job particularly, and even though I might have done a good job, I haven't felt like I have afterwards, because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't give it my full attention or didn't give it my full care or respect.
Yeah.
Whereas now, it's a different experience, and I'm really happy about it.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear as well.
Yeah.
And you know, yeah, treat it like you say, doing something that you love and enjoying it and giving it the responsibility that it deserves. You know, you never work a proper day of work in your life if you're doing something that you love and enjoy. I
Mm.
mean, I want to talk about your recent releases as well. I mean, we've got "If Only I Knew," which is out on Circle recently. You know, it's got that melodic sound that's, you know, synonymous with you. I mean, how would you kind of describe your output in terms of your own sound? Or the Denis Sulta sound? How would you describe it?
Um, I don't know, to be honest. I think that like I don't know. I like melodies.
Mm-hmm.
I like writing melodies.
Yeah.
It's a lovely thing to do, and I think that like, you know, there's always been a little bit of me that's enjoyed the do 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 do. Do you know what I mean? And it's
Uh-huh.
as simple as that, really. I just love the little melodies, and I like kind of the sound of like sort of like melancholic synths, but like without it being kind of too obvious. I think, I don't know. I like melodies,
Yeah.
and I've always enjoyed writing really beautiful harmonies and melodies and things, and I've wanted to try and keep that kind of without throughout my music, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as long as I'm just being honest, that's the thing. I think that like a lot of what I'm doing just now, I'm doing a lot of work at the moment on a slightly kind of bigger project, and I think that the way I'm attacking it is that I just want to be honest the whole time about what feels good, and not to say that like I haven't done that in everything I've released, but I think that, and a part of that is accepting where I was at the time, but you know, it's just to try and stay honest
Yeah.
about what I like and
Yeah.
what feels good for me, because that's the bit that I am really involved in. and I enjoy. It's the only bit I enjoy is the making of the music. That's it. Once it's finished, I find it hard to still enjoy it as much. It's
Oh,
weird.
no way.
So yeah,
So, and we've spoken to loads of DJs and producers on this podcast, obviously, and there is an element of people trying. The best thing you can teach yourself is about when something's finished, and when is the right time to draw a line on it and be like, I'm done with this now. I'm happy with it. Set it loose.
yeah,
It sounds like you're very clear in terms of getting it done, but then not enjoying the life it has after the fact it's done. Is that right?
yeah, exactly. I think that like I was literally was talking to someone about this yesterday. It sort of is like it's kind of like fruit. It's like it ripens during like the process of like the creative process, and then once it's ready to eat, it just does nothing but sour from that moment onward. So I
Uh-huh.
will enjoy it for like a day or two, and then after that, I will like it will be it will be really difficult for me to listen to it again. And I think that I'm not great at knowing when to finish things, and I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there's been times when I've like really tried to like implement a deadline so that I can finish something because
Yeah.
it's good practice,
Mm-hmm.
and I have done that. And but at the same time, in order to get stuff over the line, sometimes it requires you to do like so much extra work, and then you start to question it again, and all that stuff for me is really difficult because you just end up hating it.
Yeah.
And for me at the moment, I'm just doing my best to like keep it like half baked and then in the freezer until I come back to it with someone else. And
Yeah.
then like I'll just keep this sort of like a couple of like half baked, really fresh ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and then like just don't listen to them. Like so, a lot of the time I would like make an idea, and then I would listen to it again and again and again and again and again and again. So by the time I come back to it, I'm like, oh, I've heard this so many times, and I just can't be. It's the magic is completely gone from it.
Yeah.
So a lot of it for me now is about nurturing this mindset that I have right now, which is about being excited and honest and about not trying to overthink things and about whether or not something is good or not. It's just
Mm-hmm.
about whether or not it feels good. And I think that like if it feels nice in here, then that's all that matters. And then once it's kind of ready to go, then you just have to be like, okay, I don't need to think about it anymore. And
Yeah.
that's easier said than done sometimes. But I think that like I do enjoy some of the bits. I mean, I do like the new music I've put out. I do like the music I make. Otherwise, I suppose I wouldn't make it. but but it's going to be more like its existence in the world has no real impact on how it shouldn't have any real impact on how I feel about it as a piece of music. How
Mm-hmm.
it's received shouldn't have any impact on me because
Yeah.
essentially it's like it is basically just an entry. And I've got this from Rick Rubin's book. It's
Mm-hmm.
essentially just a diary entry. And so once you've written something that's honest at that present moment, then that's all it is.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
should, and how it's received or how it does or whatever shouldn't, and you shouldn't have to come back to it either. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well.
I'm sure there's a million different philosophies
Yeah.
about how to deal with this situation, and it's one that I'll continue to try my best to find the balance.
Absolutely. Well, I
And
think Rick Rubin, he kind of knows what he's talking about, doesn't he? So
yeah,
why
yeah,
not
yeah,
listen to him?
definitely,
He knows a thing or two.
definitely, yeah,
Cool. Well, we were talking about music and tracks and stuff, and this is the moment in the interview where we are going to talk about the tracks for our perfect playlist that you've already chosen. So I've got them here in front of me as well, so you don't need to worry about remembering them if you can't remember what you wrote down on our email conversation. But this is obviously the House Culture Perfect playlist that exists on Spotify. Every one of our guests has submitted tracks based on 5 different themes to this playlist, and it's massive now. It's so many hours long. It would take you a long time to get through it, but people, you just stick it on random shuffle, and there's always some good stuff in there. And we always start by asking our guests to let us know up front and see what their choices are. And the 5 themes always remain the same. And the first theme is always a catalyst. The one track that got you into dance music, electronic music, whatever, house music. And you've already mentioned this, but if there's any more color you can add to it, you've chosen the Skrillex remix of Levels by Avicii. What did that do to you the first time you heard that?
Yeah, I thought that was so cool. I genuinely thought that was so cool, and I still think it's pretty cool. I think like at the time, Avicii Levels was a big song, and I thought that was like a great song. But like, I also just thought like Skrillex was like super sick, and he was doing some like crazy stuff that sounded really evil and kind of like punky. And
Yeah,
so like,
yeah.
I played the first time I ever DJ'd was in Sub Club, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It was in Sub Club, and I DJ'd off of a controller for Ross Anderson and Matthew Craig, and I played for like an hour and a half or so, or an hour at their night I Am on a Tuesday, and I
Mm-hmm.
finished with this song. This is the last song I played, and I went out into the crowd and danced with everybody. The last song,
Yeah,
and that was like the song, I suppose, that made me go like, "This is super cool." And like that's way before I got into like house and stuff. It was
yeah,
like
yeah,
that was
yeah.
just like it was just big, explosive, full of life,
Mm-hmm.
and I just thought it was great. So yeah, that was the song. Yeah, that's the song I can remember the most that got me into dance music.
No, that's brilliant, and it's great to have it in there and hear your story behind it.
Yeah,
Another tune, the next one is always a floor filler. Maybe a go-to floor filler, and there's 2 different kind of schools of thought we've had with people that we interview. It's sometimes a floor filler. I mean, certainly when we wrote these themes, so floor filler for me was something that is a massive tune that everyone's on the dance floor for. But we've had some people as well that have said, okay, a floor filler is for them is when the floor's kind of half empty and it's something to entice people on the dance floor too. So,
yeah,
I don't know which way you're approaching it, but you've chosen Antoine Claraman, Back to the Old School.
yeah.
Just talk us through that.
I've gone for your thought process.
Yeah.
That did come through my mind. It was like it's kind of like, is it like to get people onto the dance floor, or is it
Hmm.
just like the synonymous understanding of the word floor filler, which just
Yeah.
means like the biggest tracks you
A
could possibly
banger.
think of? Like, do you
Hmm.
know what I mean? And that's kind of where my head was going to.
Yeah.
This one's like absolutely, yeah. This one's just class. It's like big kind of like French disco house type thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
This Antoine Clairman, I don't know much about them, but they've a couple of their tracks has been on my radar recently, and this one's my favorite one. It's just
Yeah.
class, big
Yeah.
vocal and big kind of like back to the old school
Yeah.
vocal, and then it's just like one of those like big synths. They kind of like it's like the West Coast whistle synth, and it just kills. It kills every time. It just kills. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's as simple as that. It's just an absolute banger.
Yeah. It's
So set your,
quality.
set your eyebrows on fire. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's got that, like you say, that real kind of French looped, kind of filtered
Yeah,
sound to it. Yeah,
it's too heavy, man. It's too heavy.
Okay, a sunsetter. You've chosen Blue Flash by Frankie and Sandrino.
Yeah.
Talk us through that one.
So Sunsetter, I suppose, is like the song that goes from day into night,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and this one, like, I love this one. It's like I played this with Solomon at the weekend last
Mm-hmm.
weekend because I sort of thought it was gonna like fit in with the sort of the sound,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't wrong. It's like
Yeah.
it's such a banger, and
Yeah.
and it kind of reminds me a little bit of like subculture type sound. You know, it's maybe the sort of thing that like Harry and Dom would play in subculture,
Mm-hmm.
and but as far as like sunset goes, I like that sort of moment when you. The last time I felt that was when I played elsewhere in Brooklyn, and I
Mm-hmm.
played on a rooftop in Brooklyn, New York,
Yeah. Yeah.
and with Manhattan behind me and
Yeah.
the sun coming down, and it's like
Wow.
one of the most amazing moments ever,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
like that's when you kind of go, something like that would take you from that sort of like evening glow into into the nighttime,
Into the
into like let's get serious.
yeah. Yeah, quality.
It's great, good synth, really good synth harp, and just great production.
Yeah, it's certainly it goes somewhere as well. Yeah, it's really enjoyed listening to that yesterday. Okay, a tearjerker, something that fills you with emotion. Doesn't necessarily have to be dance music, house music, whatever. Something maybe slower tempo, and it's what you've gone for. My Friend by Groove Armada.
Yeah, nice song.
Yeah,
Nice song. It's a nice song. Yeah, I think I don't know actually. Seeing as you said tearjerker, it's like could it be dance music or not dance music? I don't know. I've heard that song. I heard that song on the way home from a holiday I went on with my partner Saoirse and her family, and lovely trip. Shout out to the Jacksons. Shout out to my wonderful fiance Saoirse. You're amazing, honey. If you're listening to this, thank you. And I heard it on the way home from that trip, and I was looking out, and I was looking out over like Lake Geneva on the train home, and it was a nice little moment. You know what I mean? So I suppose that's just I have a moment with it, and that's nice. So
yeah. Excellent. And yeah, I do hear that you're getting married next year as well. So
I am getting married next year. I'm very excited about it. To the wonderful. Sorry, I was knocking the microphone. To the wonderful Ms. Saoirse Monica Jackson. Yeah,
wow,
it's amazing. We're so excited. It will be brilliant. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah,
awesome. Okay, our last tune. Crowd are asking for one more. What do you play? And it's the extended version of. I want to pronounce this correctly. Is it Away?
Away? I think it's Away.
Away?
Yeah, I think it's Away.
By Cronin and Coletta. Yeah, just tell us why you've chosen
It's
that.
class. I don't know. I just totally just one of them ones. It's class.
Yeah.
I think this is a hard one because, like, honestly, the last tune kind of changes a little bit for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like it was DJ Daddy Trance for a while with his big one. What's it called? It's That Time to Get on the Floor. I was playing that for a while.
Yeah.
I was playing Destination Unknown for a while.
Yeah.
I was playing Cry for You by I don't know who the song is by the artist. When Cry for You, you know, that one sort of thing. So it's kind of a mixture of like big pop, old throwback things and stuff. But if I was to choose one that didn't have to be that, it would be this one. And I play it in the middle of my set sometimes, but it's so class. It's so happy and like short as well. It's super short. It's like 2.5 minutes. The extended is like 3 minutes. So like it's just a really great hook, and the trumpet sound in it is like super joyful. It's like silly, but like not daft. It's great, and every time I play it, people seem to just their mood seems to change. Mine does. It's great fun. So yeah, I'll choose that.
Excellent choice. Cool. And well, that was the final tune, and this is the final question of the interview. We always ask this. This is the last question. We are House Culture. This is the House Culture podcast, and us as House Culture. We love the scene. It's not just about the music, it's about the personalities, the fashion, the art, all of these things that kind of, and the history of it that make up, the foundations of where we exist now. I mean, when you think of the term house culture, what does it mean to you based on that?
I suppose my life has been very dictated by it. I suppose that like, for a lot of like my clubbing years in the last 10 years, I've been very much indulged in it. And I think that means to be around like a certain type of music and to like be involved in the fashion side of things and to be involved in like the clubs and the people and stuff and the traveling and all that kind of kit. I think that it's great to kind of have something like this because you can sort of kind of see into like people's real lives and see what kind of real people are like, and and catch them at a respectable time on a Tuesday. Do you know what I mean? And like and sort of in their own house, I think that like it's such an amazing thing to be able to dip in and out of now. And like I have really enjoyed my years as a DJ and as a music producer. Like, there's no doubt about it. It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely been an exciting, and there's been highs and there's been lows.
Mm-hmm.
But like where I am with it right now is a very, very grateful to be where I am and to have had the experiences that I have. And so now it's just a wonderful thing to be a part of, without, yeah, that's it, really. I think it's a great thing to be able to connect all these people and speak to you, Matt, and thanks so much for having us and asking all these lovely questions. It's kind of like a lovely thing, it's hilarious. It's great being able to talk about yourself for an hour and a half and someone listening like,
No, I mean, thank you for sharing. I mean, that's a brilliant place and final thought to have on it. And thank you for sitting down with us as well, and for your really kind words. Like you say,
anytime.
it is nice just to have a conversation and on, like you say, a respectable time and a quiet environment, and really hear someone tell us their story. So yeah, thank you for doing that. Really appreciate it.
Top class. Thank you, Matt.